All right. So the next question. Did you go first before? Or was it me?
I went first last time.
Okay. So the top five things on keeping the flame alive. Ooh, I didn't change that one. I should probably change that one. So here are my. I'll list out four because I didn't.
Boy, go.
Flirting. Flirting is a big deal. You gotta let your woman know that you love her, that she bad to the bone, fine self, stick of butter, melt my mouth, looking girl. No, okay, yeah, but you gotta flirt with her as best as you can on a regular basis. I've learned that. I've always been pretty expressive and open about how I feel about her, physically, verbally, yeah, and so I feel like that's a top one. Intentional dating, intentional date nights. It's we're in a pandemic right now, so it's kind of a little bit challenging. But before the pandemic started, we would go on at least 2 dates a month. And I think we said that before we got married too. I think that was the thing we did before we got married too. So we just kind of carried it over into marriage. And so even living with each other now and growing together, we're very intentional about doing date nights. At least twice a month, and even if it's something that we're going down the street for, we still like to dress up nice, and she doesn't wear makeup a lot of times, which she's beautiful without makeup, thank the Lord. You know what I'm saying? And so when she does wear makeup, it's like, oh. But yeah, so just flirting and intentional date nights. Traveling, I also have traveling on the list as well. I was big on learning and doing new things together, going new places together, experiencing things together. Whether that could be water sport like parasailing, or that could be scuba diving, or going to a different state, a different country, doing and traveling things together. Doing things and traveling together with new experiences. That's a big one for me. Mm-hmm. I also have hanging with other married friends. Within like a married small group, you got to get a group of people who understand where you're at. Our first year of marriage, we hung around other people who were in their first year or second or third year, and that was a big part of how we got through. If I was upset about something and she just couldn't understand it, I would talk to my homie, and be like, "Hey man, look, I know you're going through this or you have gone through this before. How'd you process it?" And that helped a whole lot. I know she has her group of wives. I have my group of husbands. They're actually, thankfully, we're all mutual friends. But now we try to be intentional about having, married group things like barbecues and cabin trips and stuff. So, yeah. And the fourth one was, that was the fourth one. The fifth one is, should I say that?
We'll keep it PG.
Yeah, that was my top four.
I would say the 15th, for the married folks, we'll call it worship.
Worship, y'all.
Trying new things with worship.
Worship.
Talk to each other about what you all are comfortable with, and but still
worshiping together.
Be willing to try something a little different sometimes
with your worship.
With your worship, we'll say that. I said dancing together. I love to dance, and so when we just put on some music, and even if we're just being silly with each other, that draws me closer to him. I'm like, okay, like it's just having fun and cooking together. Just really, you'll see the theme is just like togetherness, and we'll try new recipes. And so it's just a way of depending on each other and just helping and working together. It helps to like improve our communication, especially when we have to like cook a recipe or
cook something new, right?
Yeah. I would say set the environment, when it comes to romance. Making sure you're doing things that the other person likes. So if there's a certain favorite song or favorite genre of music that your partner likes, play that, light some candles and really try to make things like, I know for me it's big for when we're spending time with each other for like me to not be stressed. So if he's doing stuff to help take the load off of me, that helps to keep the romance alive. That keeps the flame alive because I'm not stressed out. He's taking the load off, and I'm able to enjoy our moments together a little bit more. He already talked about trying new things and experiences, and I would say having deeper conversations. Like you can easily Google questions to talk about with a partner. Like, you have to be intentional because sometimes, especially in the pandemic, like, you think, oh, you're together all day, but you can go throughout the day, all day together and still really not talk about nothing.
Yeah.
Like, just staying on the surface. And so it's good to just be intentional about having deeper conversations, you know, putting the phones away. I know he's big about putting the phones away. So sitting down at dinner or unless you're using your phone to look at the list of questions, and that's okay. Or maybe you can write them down on cards, and then you choose some random questions. I know some companies actually have conversation cards for couples that you can probably find on Amazon or somewhere on the internet. And those just help to just get to know each other better, learn something new. You're always going to be learning new things about your spouse.
Yeah. Conversation cards. We incorporated that within one of our date nights, and it made for a great time of discussion just for like a 1 straight hour. I think it was long. I don't remember. But conversation cards, include those. What's the toughest part about first year of marriage and the best part? You can go.
I would say the toughest part overall has been conflict and communication. However, it was realizing what the underlying issue of that was. And so recently, like within the past few months, we realized that we were triggering wounds in each other. And so he may say something to me, it's triggering something in my past. So when I'm responding, I'm not just responding to what he said, but I'm responding to every other guy that had hurt me before. And vice versa. I may say something that triggers something in him and issues that he's had. So when he's responding to me, you know, he's trying to fight for himself or defend himself. And so that wasn't healthy, because then we both got the guns out on each other, but we're on the same team. And bang. I would say that learning how to work through your trauma, learning how to work through your baggage, because it can come up in some unexpected ways. And so in dealing with that, I mentioned it earlier, was going to counseling for me individually. I went before marriage individually, but I found a new person once we had moved, and it was just really helpful to just bring stuff to the surface, going through exercises that can help me continue to walk in healing from some traumatic experiences as a child, some issues that I had in my prior relationship, and the way that ended still affected me greatly. And so just really taking the time to walk through healing, and even we've had a couple of times when we did a joint session, and I think that really helped us to move forward. And so no, that's really good. Identifying those triggers is a big part of that process. A lot of people just kind of go throughout the day and not really realizing, why am I upset, and what was the thing that triggered me? It was something that happened 5, 6, 7 years ago, you know, and that kind of resurfaced. So understanding and identifying what your specific triggers are and what your spouses are, you know, that starts the process, and that makes for a really, really big deal. Makes for a big difference as well if you can identify those. Yeah. For mine, toughest part was growing in the areas that you weren't really ready to grow in yet. You know, a lot of people want to kind of stay in their comfort zones, but obviously you can't grow if you don't step out of your comfort zone. But sometimes things will come upon you, challenges, circumstances, and you are like, it's like God pushes you, like, grow in this real quick. I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to do that. So growing in those different areas, because when you get married, a lot of different areas are going to they're going to have a light shine. The light will shine in the specific areas of your life that you may not be ready for, or you may not be ready for those things to surface yet. So growing in those areas that you may or may not be ready for, you're not planning on growing in that specific area just quite yet, that made for a big difference. And also, I think the best part was witnessing the growth in each other. Like, I can, like, looking back when we first started dating back in 2015, you know, she was cute, you know what I'm saying? She was cute, and I had just met her, we were hanging out more and more. But looking back from 2015 to today, the growth has been tremendous, like in a lot of different areas, not just for her, but for myself as well. For her specifically, I'm not going to name them, but I think that's one of the best things that you can.
I think it's one of the best things that you can really witness in your spouse is their growth over time, you know, and not just the effort that you guys are putting in together, but actually seeing those efforts and those, everything come to fruition and being like, man, wow, you used to be like this. I'm so glad you done grew out of that. You know, I'm so glad you didn't change. I'm so glad God touched your heart. So witnessing the growth in each other, probably the best part.
And I think the key word that he said was over time.
Yeah.
One of the biggest lessons as well was understanding that when we came into marriage, I was 26 and he was 25 when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been me for 26 years. He's been him for 25 years. And there's experiences in both of our lives that have shaped who we are as people.
Yeah.
So when you come into marriage, sometimes there can be an expectation that you want your spouse to grow on your timeline, but that's not how it works.
Nah, bruh.
Okay?
Nah, bruh.
So you really have to be patient with your spouse, be patient with yourself as you're growing, and show a lot of grace. Because
because you're going to need it.
You're going to need it. And understand that growth or that change is not going to happen overnight.
No,
and don't constantly, remind your spouse, ain't you supposed to be growing in this? I think one of the biggest thing that you can do as your spouse is growing in whatever area is praying for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really going to God in prayer, because God can convict your partner in ways that you will never be able to with your words. So I wanted to ask you mentioned earlier, there were some areas that you wanted to grow in that you weren't necessarily ready to grow in, but had to because of marriage. What was that? Or give me one thing.
Ooh, okay. One thing I had to grow in marriage in which I wasn't quite ready to, I would say, not responding how I wanted to respond. Gab could be saying something to me or talking to me, and she could be the one that's upset, and Gab could say something off the wall and sideways, and it would make me just what? What'd you say? What was that you said again? Say it louder, please. Okay. It would be something like that, and I would have to. The growth is learning not to pull that trigger. Learn not to pull that trigger back towards her. And she may pop off at the mouth at me for something. She may be in a bad mood, have an attitude. I ate her burger or something like that, and she may want to get upset. And learning how to just keep it in my head, just saying my response in my head, but not verbally. Because honestly, if I pull the trigger back on her, that can really elevate an argument. It can really take it to
be petty tea.
It can. It can really. Sometimes she calls me petty tea. It can really take it to a place that both of you guys really just don't want it to go. And so that was one of the biggest things I had to grow in. I wasn't ready to grow in that area. Just learning how to keep my mouth shut when I was disrespected towards. Okay. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would say that. What about you?
One thing I would say has definitely been anger. And anybody who from work or, the average person at church that wouldn't necessarily categorize me as an angry person. I don't even think I would categorize myself as an angry person. But marriage will bring some things out of you. That you didn't even know was down in there that just want to rise up like the Falcons,
Yeah, it will.
I'm not a Falcons fan, but that's it rises up, okay? And I really had to deal with it. I mean, since we're being transparent, from cussing when I'm upset, just going in, there was just no boundaries around my anger. And even the word tells us, be angry and sin not. God gave us emotions for a reason. So it's not the emotion itself that's bad, but how we respond. And I wasn't responding good. I was we were just both
we're both pulling that trigger, both pulling the trigger.
And that just wasn't the right thing to do. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, I went to counseling. I did therapy for it a little bit during engagement season, but since we moved, I had to find someone different, and so it just helped to get to deeper issues that helped me to realize what some of the roots of my anger were. And so I would definitely say, like, you know, it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, she's grown a lot.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
Even our marriage class that we were in, they had nicknamed me Cayenne Pepper.
No. I nicknamed her Cayenne Pepper.
Goodness.
She got that red pepper mouth, you know, when she upset. And so they took it and kind of ran with it as well. So,
yeah.
So what's been the biggest conflict? This next question is, what's been the biggest conflict? Go ahead.
Okay. So I would say in our marriage there has been like two biggest conflicts. One of them was very early on, and then another one was like kind of towards back in February. And I would say both of those conflicts were related to how to react, or how can he deal with me wanting time with my family or my friends by myself. Mm-hmm. When he wants to hang out with his friends or something like that, like, I don't have an issue with that. Like, alone time is good for me, but, you know, we each have our different preferences, and we had to really try to figure out, okay, what does it look like for me to have me time without trying to make it seem like I'm leaving him out of things, or that we're not being one, because I need my me time. And so we won't really hash all the details because it does involve family and friends. But those were, it got heated because I just didn't. It was one of those things where we just could not see eye to eye. Like, I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. I just spending time with my family, or I just want to spend time with my friends. And he felt very strongly about, you know, it not representing oneness. And so I didn't even really think that we had a resolution. We just kind of chose to move on from that.
Yeah. So that's what I learned about her. Is one of her needs is me. She calls it me time. So just having time to herself, whether it is with her friends or her family, or just literally by herself. And so I'm just looking at her like, you ain't trying to do this together? Like, I'll do it together with you. At some point, you know, I need to have my time. And so learning how to deal with that was a need of hers. And we both had to learn. I had to learn to, I guess, approach it and have a different perspective towards it. And she had to learn how to express that towards me. You know, and in both cases required a lot of growth and a lot of discipline. I think the biggest conflict for me overall would be, like, the overarching would be communication. I think a lot of the conflicts we've been in had something to do with a poor delivery or a miscommunication, or not fully explaining something, whether it's from her to me or me to her. Communication probably, and usually it's the delivery of things. Because, you know, when you got that attitude, well, you know what I'm saying? Just come out a little bit differently. Come out left. So, but communication overall.
Mm-hmm. And expectations.
And expectations, too.
Unspoken.
Yeah, unspoken expectations. That's a big one, actually. That's actually a really big one. Like, if you guys don't communicate about what you expect from this person and what they expect from you, expectations are not going to be met. Mm-hmm. And that's going to lead to, that's like putting more fuel in the fire.
Mm-hmm. And then all the time you're upset with them because they didn't meet your expectation, but you never communicated. So they're just that was me, just hey fam, like just and he had this expectation of me, you know, that in that particular moment that he wanted me to stay with him and spend time with him in that time, but I didn't know. And so he's upset, and I'm just living my best life, and he's mad at me, and I don't even, like, when you don't speak your expectations, you don't give your partner the opportunity to live up to them.
Yep, exactly.
It's one thing to communicate your expectations and then they disappoint you. Mm-hmm. Okay, that happens. But when you don't speak on them and you still hold them to that expectation and you're upset, they have no idea. So communicate, and that's related to communication, but communicate what you expect, like, so that your partner at least has the opportunity to live up to it.
Yes, and that needs to happen not just in marriage, but even before marriage, like in relationships. take the time to discuss like your expectations. What do I expect from me as a man, godly man, trying to live right from you? These are the needs. These are your needs, and how can we both kind of meet these needs and still glorify God as a result? That conversation needs to happen earlier than later, honestly.
Yes.
Okay, our favorite book we read together. All right, so one of the books we read is called Things I'd Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. So this book, actually we read it when we were engaged, and it's actually a really, really good book. Some of the things inside of it we had already known just by hanging out with different marital groups and different married couples, and we had also known from going to couples counseling, marital counseling, premarital counseling, really, before we got married. And so, but there was a lot of nuggets in here that we both didn't realize. We both never thought to put time in to think about. And so we have 2 copies of this book if you guys care to have a copy for whatever relationship. If you're thinking about getting married, thinking about proposing soon, this is a great resource to have. Highly recommend it. It's by Gary Chapman. So we have 2 copies if you guys care to have one. We don't mind giving it to you guys. The other book we're reading is called Relationship Goals by Michael Todd.
Popular right now.
It's a very popular book right now. Just recently came out this past summer. We're actually on chapter 4, reading it together, and it's been pretty good so far. I would say so. Of the different books, we both read separate books, but these are probably the most 2 important ones that we read together. And a lot of life-changing nuggets are inside both books. So, yeah.
And outside of reading books together, the Bible app has wonderful plans that you can do together. Excuse me. As a married couple, so that's one of our themes. Sometimes we'll do longer ones, sometimes we'll do shorter ones, but there's lots of ones on marriage that can just really help to give you those reminders, because like Tyrus mentioned earlier, like multiple premarital counseling, reading all these books, but sometimes when you're in the moment, when you're in the thick of it, all that stuff, it's not really fresh in your brain.
No.
So doing those Bible plans together regularly can help to keep those principles fresh in your memory, so that you can actually live them out in that day-to-day.
Yeah, and that was actually our last question that was sent in to us. Do you have any closing remarks, wife?
I would say, don't give up. Like, we're not marriage experts. Our first year of marriage has been very interesting, but I will say that it gets better. And just like life has many seasons in marriage, there's many seasons and lots of adjustment, but don't give up and really pray for your marriage consistently. Get yourself connected to some community.
Yes.
Especially if you are a believer, have other Christian couples that you surround yourself with, that you can get close with, because it really
makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. Just talking to them, again, you just feel like you'll just be reminded you're not alone in this journey. And they can also share tips. I love our wives calls. When we have our wives calls, we always share with each other, like, girl, you should try this. And, it's really great. And we push each other to try new things, to please our husbands, and on their end, they talk about whatever they talk about too. But I would say community makes a world of a difference in addition to that prayer. And then lastly, take that extra step for counseling if you need it. I know in the Black community there can be this negative stigma when it comes to therapy. I'm very grateful that my parents were champions of therapy and counseling, encouraged it for us, because it makes a difference. And it doesn't have to be like you always go. It could just be for a season, but it helps. Like, just telling people just to pray about it. Yes, pray about it. Yes, get in community. But there are professionals for a reason. They're professionals that can help you and hold you accountable in ways that your family and friends can't.
Yeah, for me, closing remarks, I would say really take the time, whether you're married or you're engaged or you're still in a relationship, not yet engaged, take the time to invest in yourselves. If you're in a relationship looking to get married, if you're engaged looking to get married, take the time to invest in your relationship. You know, whether that's marital conferences, reading books together, Bible plans, going to premarital counseling. Like I said, we did that twice, and so it really actually did benefit us tremendously. Take the time to invest in that union to be. You know that, and if you already are married, you know, continue to not only invest but really surround yourself with other married groups or other married couples. Just like Gab was saying, one of the biggest things that really helped us in our first year was being able to not only to discuss but actually relate with other people who are in the same boat as us. We have some of our closest friends are, you know, either 1, 2, or 3 years married, and then obviously we have other couples that are been married a lot longer. But some of our closest friends in our little marital group have been married just around the same time as we have, and so if I'm going through something or if they're going through something, we'll reach out. Mutual friends is a big deal, and so, you know, that can lead to going to barbecues together, having cabin trips together, you know, just doing things together as a married, you know, a married small group essentially. Really makes a huge difference. And secondly, you know, don't give up. Don't think you're in it by yourself. You know, don't think that this is just the end all be all. You know, marriage is actually, well, for us, our experience so far, it's been really fun. We've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of laughter. Obviously, nobody's perfect, so we do have our up and downs, our roller coasters at times. But marriage is overall, it's really fun. It's really exciting. It's exciting to, you know, make goals and together and then knock them out together, to see the growth and just to grow with other people and do life together. That's a huge deal, you know, and that really makes a huge difference in the realm of marriage. And so those are probably the best, the most important closing remarks I can leave you all with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's one last thing.
Go ahead.
For my single people who may be watching this, who may be desiring marriage, I'll just say one thing that I always mention is, like, God is not any more good to us because we're married. And being married is a gift, but enjoying and being in your single season is a gift as well. And I would say really take that time to understand who you are. Like,
develop yourself.
We have a purpose together as a married couple, but we also have individual assignments that were very real and that we were working towards even prior to even meeting each other. So take the time to develop and understand who God has called you to be as an individual. Take the time. I wish I would have spent more time in counseling in my single season to really deal with those traumatic experiences from past relationships and past things from my childhood. So just as we're saying, like, invest in yourself as a couple for those who are dating or engaged or married, I would say single people, invest in you as well. Like, enjoy that particular time and make that investment.
In addition to that, I'll leave you guys with this. There's a lot of things, if you are single, there's a lot of things I learned throughout our relationship leading to our marriage that I could have learned when I was single, you know, and I just never took the time to be honestly single long enough, just if I'm just being transparent with you guys. So if you are single, really, like she said, really take the time to develop and invest in yourself. Take the time to grow and take the time to learn so that you can be all the more equipped for a relationship, for an engagement season, for marriage, you know, because that's going to make a huge deal. A lot of things, I mean, a lot of the challenges I faced with, like, you know, with you, I didn't have to if I had done it, if I just, you know, confronted them when I was single. So, yeah, so I think that's it.
Yes.
Love you guys. Till next time. Deuces.